Second part of the previous Spring ORM video. Here we are going to see after local session factory what we have to create as a bean. Actually, local session factory bean also requires data source as a bean. The first requirement of local session factory is a bean, that is the data source. Data source bean, as you already know, will have the URL, the driver manager class, and username and password. This we have seen in JDBC template. The second is hibernate property file, which will have the hibernate dialect, hibernate properties, and the third one is the annotated classes, the entity class which I have created, like the product.java class. These are annotated classes. Okay, like here product.java. Okay, these three are the requirements of local session factory bean. Local session factory bean is required due to we cannot create interfaces session factories object which is provided to the hibernate template. Now I'm going to tell you the bean which we create for data source. Like I have said, data source will give you a bean which will have the driver manager class name, URL, username and password. I'm just going to write it for local session factory bean, which will be provided to hibernate template, which will indirectly give session factory to the product.impl. Now let's go to your Eclipse and create the config.xml file, which will have all the beans starting from the data source. So let's go to your POM file and add. See, here I have added my SQL connector and hibernate core. So this is my product DAO and product details was my table name. New, I'm going to create a class. Here I'm going to directly create a class rather than creating an interface. Product.impl, you can also have an interface that will have collection of methods, like all the crude methods, the package name and finish. So this is my DAO. As you can see, product.impl, create method. I'm going to create my first method, public int create product and implementation. Here we have to pass a product object, import the product. As you can see, it is in my com.mypack.spring.orm.module.class name. Now we are going to use a property or a field, hibernate template class. Hibernate template class. Hibernate template is a class. Okay, it's template. It's not there. Okay, I'm getting an error. We don't have hibernate template. This is because in the POM file, I have not added Spring ORM in the previous video. So we are going to go and add it, hibernate template. Here I'm searching, I'm not getting. Okay, so let me just write. It's not there. So hibernate is there, orm.hibernate, but hibernate template class is not there. Okay, so let me just see syntax error. There is no hibernate. POM file, scroll down. Hibernate core is there. org, we need hibernate core as well, but we also need Spring ORM for hibernate template class. So let's add this dependency. Search for Spring ORM. Please note the versions which I am using. I am not using 6, I am using 5. The same as my other Spring jars, 5.3.14. Because if we use 6 version, so we need to use STS tool suite. So copy and paste. Here I'm going to just copy the version to make sure all my Spring dependencies are of same versions. I'm going to format and save it. So now if I autocomplete, here you can see hibernate template class and then the reference name. Now let's create getter and setter. Please note that we have to create the getter and setter of a field. Generate getter and setter, save it. Now we have to pass a bean of local section factory so that we can get the object of hibernate template. Product DAO create method hibernate template. Product DAO requires hibernate template, and hibernate template requires the session factory, and local session factory will provide the session factory. Now let's start with the configuration of our config.xml file. So let's just select a file. You can have any name for your config file, but here I'm using config.xml file, and then click finish. Okay, now as you know, we are going to go open your Chrome and type Spring. We are just going to copy the schema configuration.xml file, then go to my one of the favorite site, Spring XML configuration. We just need the schema because we don't have to learn the schema. This will pull all the necessary schema. Just copy and go and paste inside your config.xml. Save it. Now we have to create the first bean, that is data source. So as you know, write a bean class and Control Shift T. Click on it, Control Shift T, driver manager data source. Driver manager data source. Okay, it's not there. Okay, I'm writing data source, driver manager. Driver manager data source. Here it is. Of Spring. Copy the class name. Go and paste. And we also need the package name. Package name, and here I'm going to give the bean name like ds. Simple, you can also use data source. In this bean we have to configure the driver class name. As I'm using MySQL Workbench, MySQL database, I'm going to give the driver class name as com.jdbc MySQL localhost port number 3306 database here schema name test db. I'm going to create this when I'm going to show you how to create a schema in Workbench. Okay, here I am using the P schema, so I'm just going to copy this schema. As you can see, there is no P schema. Copy it and remove the A and O for P schema. Okay, here is my JDBC, and then comes the URL is equals to colon. Here we are going to pass the URL. As you know how to pass the URL. Okay, this is my driver class name, so here by mistake I have given the URL. I'm just going to cut it and paste it in the URL, and in the class name I'm going to give the com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver class. This is a package name. Previously there was a mistake when I was writing. This is my driver class name and this is my URL name. And the third property is the username. Please make sure you write exactly in lower cases. Username root. My username is root, and the last one is the password. My username is root and password is also root. You can have any user or any password. So we have created the first bean of data source. This is my first bean. Here this is my schema name. So go and search for MySQL Workbench. Click here. My user is password and my username is root and password is root. And then go to schema. Click to create a new schema. I was using testdb. This is my testdb. Here I'm going to create testdb and apply. Okay. So see, here it has created testdb. Here we have created data source bean. Thank you.